A delivery at night turned into a living nightmare. Some nights are quiet, too quiet, and then there are nights when something dark waits outside your door, in the shadows, unseen. This story begins in a peaceful neighborhood in Tampa, Florida, where two sisters, Emily and Sarah, grew up together. As children, they had been inseparable, sharing secrets and dreams under the Florida sun. But life has a way of twisting bonds, turning love into envy and memories into grudges. Emily had always been the older, more responsible sister. She married into a well-respected family, moving into a beautiful home with her husband Michael. Everything about her life seemed perfect. A thriving career, a home filled with laughter. But there was one absence that weighed heavily on her heart: a child. Emily had longed to hold a little one in her arms, to hear the tiny heartbeat of a life she had created with Michael. She tried, prayed, and waited, but nothing seemed to happen. Sarah, on the other hand, lived comfortably nearby. Her life was stable, but not extravagant. She watched Emily's life from the sidelines, envy quietly growing inside her like a shadow. At first, she blamed herself for feeling this way. But as Emily struggled with her attempts to conceive, that envy began to fester. Every happy moment Emily shared felt like a dagger to Sarah's heart. And when Emily finally received the news that she was pregnant, Sarah's envy became something far more sinister. It twisted her thoughts, her desires, until she could think of nothing but stopping her sister from experiencing the joy she had longed for. Driven by this jealousy, Sarah began searching for ways to interfere with Emily's happiness. Her search led her to an obscure man who claimed to wield powers beyond ordinary understanding. A practitioner of dark rituals, he promised that Emily's unborn child could be taken away, that her dreams of motherhood could be destroyed, and that the despair she would feel could be made complete. Sarah, blinded by envy and a desire for revenge, agreed to everything he asked. That night, the ritual began. Candles were placed in strange patterns. Strange herbs and powders filled the room, and the air grew thick with a cold, unnatural weight. The man whispered words Emily could never hear, words that promised devastation. Sarah felt a thrill as she watched the ritual unfold, unaware of the price that would soon be paid. Emily's world shattered in an instant. One morning, she awoke to the worst possible news. Her unborn child was gone. The joy she had waited for, the life she had dreamed of, vanished in a cruel twist of fate. Michael tried to console her, but there were no words that could ease the pain. Grief settled into their home like a shadow that refused to lift. But Sarah's plan didn't end there. In a twisted act of deceit, she offered her own young son for adoption to Emily. She painted it as a gift, a way to mend the pain she had caused. Emily, desperate to fill the emptiness in her heart, reluctantly agreed. From the moment the boy arrived, however, strange and frightening things began to happen. He would wake screaming in the middle of the night, talking to shadows no one else could see. Sometimes objects in the house would move on their own, or doors would open and close without explanation. Fear settled into every corner of the home, and Emily and Michael could feel it pressing down on them like a weight they could not lift. They sought help everywhere: therapists, spiritual healers, even local churches, but nothing worked. The darkness was alive, persistent, and growing. Sarah began to realize that the forces she had unleashed were not limited to Emily's life. The boy, her own son, had become a vessel for the very curse she had placed. What she thought was a clever manipulation turned into a nightmare that threatened to consume everyone she loved. She returned to the practitioner who had first performed the ritual, desperate for answers and perhaps a way to undo the harm. He told her the truth. The dark magic she had invoked could rebound, striking those who meddled with forces beyond their understanding. The only way to stop it was a ritual involving Emily herself, a dangerous and terrifying act that might not even succeed. Emily, desperate and terrified, agreed to take part. Together, they confronted the chilling figure once more. Candles flickered, casting shadows that danced along the walls like creatures made of darkness. The air was icy, carrying whispers that seemed to echo from unseen corners. Emily could feel her heart pounding in her chest as she clutched the boy close, hoping that somehow, some way, this nightmare could end. But the darkness had its own plans. During the ritual, the boy, Sarah's own son, collapsed mysteriously. His small body lay limp, and no one could explain why. Panic and grief filled the room as realization hit them all. The evil Sarah had unleashed had returned to harm her own child. The horror of her jealousy had come full circle, leaving devastation in its wake. Emily and Michael survived, but the emptiness remained, and Sarah was left to face the consequences of her actions. The lesson is clear. Jealousy and envy can twist hearts, manipulate minds, and bring nightmares to life. When you use darkness to harm others, it never remains confined. It follows you, taking everything you love and holding it hostage. Some nights are quiet, and sometimes it is in that silence that the real horror waits, right outside your door. You may never see it, you may never hear it, but you will feel it, and it will remind you that the choices we make, the darkness we unleash, can never truly be undone.